She was assigned to supervise me. That's how it was written on paper. Clean, official, emotionless. A name, a role, a schedule. Nothing more. But papers don't mention the way someone looks at you when you're already tired of being watched. They don't record the quiet moments after midnight when the building settles and the walls stop listening. And they definitely don't warn you about conversations that start as procedure and end up changing how you breathe. The first night I met her, I assumed she would be like the others. Professional, distant, efficient. She knocked once, waited exactly 3 seconds, and opened the door. "I'm Evelyn," she said. "I'll be supervising the night hours this week." Her voice was calm, steady, no sharp edges, no fake warmth. I nodded, already bracing myself. "Okay." She glanced around the room, checking corners, the window, the desk, clipboard tucked under one arm. She wasn't rude, but she wasn't cold either, just observant. "I'll be outside most of the time," she said, "but I'll check in every hour." "That's fine," I replied. She hesitated, just slightly. "And," she added, "if you need water, the restroom, or anything else, just ask." I wasn't used to being told that. Most supervisors didn't phrase things as permission. The place wasn't dangerous, just restrictive. A transitional facility, temporary housing, somewhere people ended up when life collapsed quietly instead of dramatically. No crimes that made headlines, just mistakes that added up. I was there because my life had stalled, not exploded. Evelyn didn't ask why. That alone set her apart. The first few nights passed the same way. She did her rounds, I stayed inside. Minimal interaction, neutral glances. But on the fourth night, something shifted. It was late, after midnight, the kind of quiet where even the building sounds tired. She stopped outside my door longer than usual. "You still awake?" she asked. "Yes." "Mind if I come in for a moment?" I hesitated, then nodded. "Sure." She stepped inside, closing the door behind her, not locking it. That mattered. "I noticed your light's always on." She glanced at the desk lamp. "You have trouble sleeping?" I shrugged. "I don't like the dark much." She nodded. No follow-up question, no judgment. "I'll leave the hallway light on tonight. It won't be bright, just present." That was the first kindness. The conversation started small, neutral, safe. "What book is that?" "Do you always work nights?" "Is it colder in here than it used to be?" She never asked questions that dug, but she listened when I offered answers anyway. One night, while she stood near the door, she said, "You don't act like most people here." I looked up from my book. "Is that good or bad?" She considered. "Different." I smiled faintly. "I'll take that." She smiled back. Not wide, not forced. Real. By the end of the week, I started recognizing her footsteps. Slow, even, never rushed. She didn't hover, she didn't linger unnecessarily, but she always gave me space to speak first. Late one night, when the building had settled into its low hum, she asked, "Do you mind if I sit?" I blinked. "You don't have to." "I know. I want to." She sat on the chair near the wall, not close enough to invade my space, not far enough to feel detached. We sat in silence for a while. It wasn't awkward. That surprised me. "I don't usually talk this much at work," she said eventually. "You're doing fine," I replied. She smiled. "So are you." The words landed gently. No implication, no expectation, just acknowledgement. I learned things about her slowly. She lived alone, she preferred night shifts, she hated loud restaurants, she drank tea instead of coffee. She learned things about me too, mostly by noticing. That I paced when anxious, that I read the same paragraph twice when distracted, that I folded my hands when I didn't know what to say. She never commented on those things. She adjusted instead. One night, after a particularly quiet hour, she said, "You know, you don't need supervision the way they think." I looked at her sharply. "Is that a problem?" "No," she said quickly. "It's just an observation." I studied her face, trying to read intention. "I'm not reporting that," she added, "if that's what you're wondering." I wasn't, but thank you. She nodded. Then, softer. You're not dangerous, you're just in between. Something in my chest tightened. No one had described me that way before. The first time our conversations went too long, neither of us noticed. It was almost 2 in the morning when the intercom buzzed. Evelyn, status check? She glanced at the clock, surprised. Copy, she replied calmly. All clear. When the line went silent, she exhaled. I should go, she said. You don't have to stay, I replied. She paused at the door. I know, she said again. That word, no. She left, but the quiet felt different after. Over the next few nights, the conversations deepened, not because we planned them to, but because we stopped avoiding certain truths. I told her about the job I lost, the apartment I couldn't afford anymore, the relationship that ended not with a fight, but with exhaustion. She didn't offer solutions. She didn't say everything happens for a reason. She just said, that sounds heavy, and somehow that was enough. One night she asked, do you ever think about what happens after this? All the time, I said. It scares me. She nodded. Yes, it scares most people. You? I asked. She hesitated. Yes, she admitted. Even when things look stable. I looked at her differently then, not as the woman supervising me, but as a woman standing in her own uncertainty. The closeness crept in quietly, in shared glances, in longer pauses, in the way neither of us rushed to end the night. I didn't name it. I wasn't ready to. But I noticed how my chest tightened when she said goodbye, how the nights felt longer when she wasn't assigned. And one evening, as she stood by the door, she said, softly, we should probably keep these conversations appropriate. I nodded. Of course. She didn't move. Neither did I. We will, she added. I just wanted to say it out loud. I swallowed. Me too. She left that night slower than usual, and for the first time, I wondered, not if something was happening, but how careful we would need to be with it. The nights changed after that conversation. Not dramatically, not all at once, but there was a new awareness between us, like we had both acknowledged something fragile and agreed, silently, to handle it carefully. Evelyn still did her rounds, still checked the doors, the windows, the logbook, still kept her voice professional when others were around. But when the hallway quieted, when the building slipped into that deep, late-night stillness, she lingered again. You reading tonight? She asked one evening. Yes, I replied. Same book. She smiled faintly. You always reread chapters when something's on your mind. I looked up, surprised. You noticed that? She nodded. I notice a lot. She said it plainly, not flirtatious, just honest. The conversations grew more deliberate, not heavier, just more intentional. She asked about my plans after the program. I told her I wasn't sure yet. That uncertainty scared me more than failure ever had. You don't strike me as someone who disappears, she said. I've disappeared before, I admitted, just quietly. She looked thoughtful. Sometimes quiet disappearances are the hardest to catch. That stayed with me. One night she brought tea. She didn't announce it, just set the mug on the desk near me. I remembered you don't drink coffee, she said. I wrapped my hands around the mug. Thank you. She hesitated. If this feels inappropriate, say so. It doesn't, I replied. It feels considerate. She exhaled, relieved. We started talking about smaller things again. Music she listened to on night drives, a dog she used to have, the way she preferred storms over sunshine. You? She asked one night. What do you miss most? I didn't answer right away. I miss being assumed capable, I said finally. She nodded slowly. That makes sense. You don't treat me like I'm fragile, I added. No, she said. I treat you like you're paying attention. That distinction mattered. There were boundaries, clear ones. She never touched me, never stood too close, never stayed past the moment it felt necessary, but the emotional presence was unmistakable. When she wasn't assigned, the nights felt longer. The hallway sounded emptier. I tried not to count how many days until her next shift. One evening, the intercom crackled again. "Evelyn, rotation update." She answered quickly, then paused. "I won't be on nights next week," she said to me afterward. "Day shift rotation." "Oh," I said, hiding my disappointment. "Okay." She studied my face carefully. "It's temporary," she added, "and it's probably healthy." I nodded. "Yeah, probably." The word probably hung between us. Her absence was louder than her presence had ever been. The new supervisor was polite but distant, efficient but uninterested. No lingering, no tea, no conversation beyond protocol. I realized then how much Evelyn had changed the texture of the nights, not by breaking rules, but by being human inside them. When she returned a week later, I didn't expect the relief I felt, but it was there. "You survived without me," she said lightly. "I did," I replied, "but the nights were quieter." She smiled gently. "They usually are." That night, the conversation took a turn. "I've been thinking," she said, leaning against the doorframe, "about what we talked about, boundaries." I nodded. "Me too." "I want to be clear," she continued. "I won't cross any professional lines, ever." "I wouldn't want you to," I said. "But," she added carefully, "I don't believe connection is automatically a violation." I met her eyes. "I don't either." She took a breath. "I just want us to stay honest." "Then we will," I said. The honesty brought closeness, but also caution. We talked less about feelings and more about perspectives, about how people carry history, about how environments change behavior. One night, she said, "You're different here than you would be out there." "I know," I replied. "Here I'm being observed." "Here," she corrected gently, "you're being witnessed." That word again. It landed like truth. There was a moment, a small one, where everything could have tipped. I dropped my book, papers scattered across the floor. She instinctively stepped forward to help, then stopped herself mid-movement. "May I?" she asked. "Yes," I said. Our hands brushed as we gathered the pages. Just briefly. The contact was light, accidental, but it sent something warm through me. She noticed, too. She straightened quickly, stepping back. "Thank you," she said. "Of course," I replied. We didn't mention it again, but neither of us forgot. Later that night, as she stood to leave, she paused. "I want you to know that whatever this is, it doesn't define you." I frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "You're not here because of me," she said, "and you won't leave because of me either." I nodded slowly. "I appreciate that." "And," she added, softer, "I care about how you come out of this." My throat tightened. "So do I," I said. The facility began preparing my exit plan. Paperwork, meetings, timelines. The reality of leaving became real. Evelyn knew before I told her. She always knew. "You're almost done here," she said one night. "Yes, a few weeks." She nodded. "How do you feel?" "Terrified. And ready." She smiled gently. "That sounds about right." The conversations grew quieter after that. Not distant, just waited. We both understood that whatever was forming had a clock attached to it. One night, she said, "When you leave, I won't be able to reach out." "I know," I said. "But," she continued, "if we ever meet again, it won't be because I was assigned." I looked at her. "That would change things," I said. "Yes," she agreed, "it would." As she left that night, I realized something. The supervision had given us structure. The structure had given us safety. And soon, both would be gone. What remained
whatever it was, would have to stand on its own.
The countdown changed everything, not because it rushed us, but because it made every moment feel precise, measured, irreplaceable. Time stopped stretching. It began to narrow. I started noticing dates on the wall calendar, not marking them, just acknowledging them as they passed. Evelyn noticed too. "You're quieter lately," she said one night, standing just inside the doorway. "Different kind of quiet." "I'm packing in my head," I replied, "even when I'm sitting still." She nodded. "That happens before big transitions." Her voice stayed steady, but I caught the pause afterward, as if she wanted to say more and chose not to. The facility buzzed with movement during the day, meetings, forms, staff rotating in and out. But at night, when Evelyn worked, everything slowed again. Our conversations didn't deepen, they sharpened. "What do you want to do first when you leave?" she asked one evening. I thought about it. "Sleep without someone checking the door." She smiled. "That sounds earned." "And you?" I asked. "What do you want next?" She leaned against the wall. "Less supervision in general." I laughed softly. Ironic. "Maybe," she said, "or maybe I'm learning something." We didn't talk about us, not directly, but it hovered in the way we checked ourselves, the way we avoided phrases that leaned too close to confession. One night, she said, "You know, I've worked here a long time." "I know," I replied. "I don't usually form attachments. It's not wise." I waited. "But," she added, "distance doesn't prevent connection. It just delays recognition." That was the closest she'd come. I didn't push. The rules didn't change, but the weight of them did. She stayed careful, always. Still, there were moments. Like the night the power flickered. The hallway lights went out briefly, then returned dimmer than before. Emergency lighting hummed softly. I startled without meaning to. Evelyn was at the door in seconds. "Hey," she said gently. "It's okay. Just a fluctuation." "I know," I said, embarrassed. I know," she repeated. She stood there, grounded, solid, not touching, but present. When the lights stabilized, she didn't leave right away. "Do you want me to stay a minute?" she asked. "Yes," I said. She stayed. Another night, she brought a book. "I finished this," she said, setting it down. "Thought you might like it." I looked at the cover. "You're lending me a book." "Yes," she said carefully, "if that's okay." "It is," I replied. "Thank you." She didn't say, "You can keep it." She said, "I'd like it back eventually." I smiled. "That sounds intentional." She smiled back. "It is." As my exit date approached, the space between us felt fuller. Not tense, just alive. One evening, I asked, "Have you ever regretted following the rules?" She considered the question seriously. "No," she said, "but I've regretted pretending they were the only thing that mattered." That answer stayed with me. The night before my final week, she stood longer than usual at the door. "You're leaving soon," she said. "Yes." "Are you ready?" She hesitated. "I think so." She nodded. "That's all anyone can be." Then, quieter, "I want you to know something." I held my breath. "I won't disappear when you walk out that door," she said, "even if we don't see each other again." I swallowed. "That means more than you know." She met my eyes. "Good." The tension wasn't sexual. It was emotional gravity, the kind that pulls two people toward honesty, not impulsiveness. On my second to last night, she sat in the chair instead of standing. We didn't speak for a while. Then she said, "When you leave, you'll have options again." "Yes," I said, "and you won't need permission to take them." I nodded. "That matters," she said. "It does," I agreed. I thought she would avoid me on my final night. I was wrong. She was there early, focused, calm. But when the building quieted, she came to my door and said, "May I sit?" "Yes," I replied. She sat.
this time closer than before, but still not touching. I don't want to cross any lines, but I don't want to leave things unsaid either. My heart thudded once. Okay, I respect you, and I care about you, not because of this place, but because of who you are in it. I didn't interrupt. I won't ask for anything, and I won't offer what I can't give. I met her eyes. I understand. She took a breath. I just needed you to know that the conversations mattered. You mattered. Emotion rose in my chest, steady and strong. So did you, more than you realize. When she stood to leave, she paused. Take the book, she said. Keep it. I smiled softly. I thought you wanted it back. I did, she replied. But some things are better carried forward. She opened the door. Good night, I said. Good night. I lay awake long after, not because I was afraid of leaving, but because I knew something rare had happened, something clean and careful and unfinished in the best way. Whatever came next wouldn't be built on rules or roles. It would be built on choice.
Leaving didn't feel like freedom at first. It felt like noise. The city rushed back into my life all at once. Traffic, decisions, unanswered emails, conversations that expected responses instead of pauses. I moved into a small studio apartment on the east side. Bare walls, borrowed furniture, a mattress on the floor. It was mine, technically, but it didn't feel anchored yet. The first night alone, I kept waiting for footsteps in the hallway. They never came. I slept poorly. I carried the book Evelyn had given me everywhere. Not because I was reading it, I'd barely opened the first chapter, but because it felt like proof that the past few months hadn't dissolved the moment I stepped outside the facility gates. I told myself I wasn't thinking about her. I was lying. Weeks passed. I found temporary work, rebuilt routines, learned which grocery store stayed open late and which cafe didn't rush you out if you ordered just one thing. Life stabilized, but there was an absence I hadn't prepared for. Not loneliness exactly, more like the sudden lack of being seen in the quiet moments. No one noticing when I reread the same paragraph. No one adjusting their presence without being asked. I didn't miss supervision. I missed attention with care. I debated whether to look her up. I knew her last name, knew the general area she lived in. It would have been easy to cross that line. I didn't. Choice mattered now. If we ever met again, I wanted it to be mutual. The message came on an ordinary Tuesday. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then I read the first line. Hi, this is Evelyn. I hope this isn't intrusive. My heart stopped. Not dramatically, but decisively. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. Hi, it's good to hear from you. The pause that followed felt intentional. I wanted to wait until enough time had passed, she wrote, until there was no overlap, no ambiguity. I appreciated that more than she could have known. I understand, I replied. Thank you for being careful. Her response came slower this time. I was wondering if you'd like to get coffee, somewhere neutral, no expectations. I smiled at the phrase. I'd like that, I typed. No expectations sounds good. The cafe was halfway between our neighborhoods. Bright, busy, normal. When I walked in, I saw her immediately. She looked different out here. Lighter, less guarded. Hair down, no uniform, just a woman sitting at a table, hands wrapped around a mug. When she saw me, she stood. Hi, she said. Hi, I replied. We hugged. Brief, consensual, grounding. Thank you for meeting me, she said. Thank you for reaching out, I answered. We sat. Conversation came easily. Too easily. We talked about mundane things at first. Work, the city, how strange it feels to rebuild routines after disruption. I kept wanting to check the clock out of habit, she admitted. I still wake up expecting to hear doors. She nodded. The body remembers structure longer than the mind. That felt true. Eventually, the conversation shifted. Not forced, just inevitable. I didn't reach out sooner because I wanted to be sure, she said, that this wasn't tied to responsibility. I get that, I replied. I wanted the same certainty. And now? She asked gently. Now, I said, I'm curious. She smiled. So am I. There was no rush. We didn't reach across the table, didn't test boundaries, didn't replay the past. We talked about the present, who we were now. That mattered more. After coffee, we walked, side by side, not touching, matching pace. This feels different, she said. Yes, I agreed, but not uncomfortable. No, she said, just honest. We stopped at a crosswalk. She looked at me. Can I ask you something? Of course. What do you want from this? Not from me, from whatever this might be. I thought carefully. I want to see where it goes, without hiding, without rushing. She nodded. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. The second meeting felt easier. Dinner this time, a small place with mismatched chairs and soft lighting. We laughed more, shared stories we hadn't before, learned each other outside the context of silence and restraint. She told me about leaving the job. Not because of you, she clarified quickly, but because I was ready. I'm glad, I said. For you, she smiled. Me too. The first time she reached for my hand, it wasn't dramatic. We were walking back to our cars, the night cool, the street quiet. She paused. Can I? Yes, I replied. Her hand was warm, steady, no rush. When she let go, she said, thank you. For asking, I said. For answering, she replied. We didn't define anything right away. We didn't need to. Connection doesn't always require labels. Sometimes it just needs consistency. One evening, weeks later, she invited me to her place. Not as an escalation, as an extension. We cooked, ate slowly, talked late. No expectations, just presence. At one point, she looked at me and said, you know, I didn't expect to see you again. I didn't either, I admitted. But I'm glad we did, she said. So am I. As I left that night, she said, whatever this becomes, I want it to be built on choice. It is, I said. Every step. She smiled. That felt like the beginning of something. Not urgent, not fragile, but real. We didn't announce what we were becoming. There was no conversation where everything suddenly clarified. No moment where one of us said, this is it. Instead, there was consistency. And consistency, I learned, can be more intimate than declarations. We kept meeting, sometimes for dinner, sometimes for walks that didn't need destinations, sometimes just to sit in the same space, reading different things, occasionally sharing a line that felt worth interrupting silence for. It felt natural in a way I wasn't used to. The strangest part was how little I felt watched. For so long, being seen had come with evaluation, someone noting my behavior, assessing progress, measuring compliance. With Evelyn, there was none of that. She noticed me, yes, but she didn't track me. That distinction mattered. One evening, as we sat on her couch, she said, "You're different now." "Better?" I asked, half joking. "More yourself," she replied, "or maybe just less braced." I thought about that. I don't feel like I'm waiting for something to be taken away anymore. She nodded. Neither do I. We talked openly about what had happened between us back then, not with guilt, with clarity. There were moments I wanted to say more, she admitted once, and moments I was relieved I didn't. Me too, I said. I needed the structure. I just didn't realize how much. She looked thoughtful. Structure can be protective, but it shouldn't be permanent. No, I agreed, but it helped me find my footing. And now? She asked. Now, I said, I choose. That word hung between us. Choice. The first time we kissed without restraint, it wasn't dramatic. It happened after a long conversation about nothing important, about grocery lists and weekend plans, and which seasons we preferred. She leaned in slowly, paused. "Is this okay?" she asked. "Yes," I said. The kiss was gentle, unrushed, real. Not the kind that erases the world, but the kind that confirms you're in it. When we pulled back, she smiled softly. "Thank you for waiting," she said. "Thank you for not rushing," I replied. Being with her didn't erase my past. It integrated it. There were days I still felt uncertain, still had moments of doubt. still questioned whether I deserved steadiness. Evelyn didn't counter those thoughts with reassurances. She countered them with presence. "I'm here," she said, simply, and then proved it again and again. Months passed, seasons changed. We grew into something that felt balanced, not equal in every way, but reciprocal. I supported her transition into a new chapter of work. She supported my tentative steps towards stability. We didn't rescue each other, we accompanied each other. One night, while cooking together, she said, "Do you ever think about how unlikely this was?" "All the time," I admitted. "And yet," she added, "it doesn't feel accidental." "No," I said, "it feels intentional." She smiled at that. We visited the bar once, not together, separately. I went first, curious, cautious. It felt different, smaller somehow, like a chapter I'd closed gently. Later, she asked how it felt. "Like a place that did its job and let me go." She nodded. "That's all any place should do." The last thing I expected was peace. Not excitement, not certainty. Peace. The kind that settles in quietly and doesn't demand attention. One evening, sitting beside her, I realized I wasn't afraid of losing her, not because loss wasn't possible, but because what we had wasn't built on fear. It was built on respect. "I don't feel like I'm supervised anymore," I said, half laughing. She smiled. "Good. And I don't feel like I need supervision," I added. "That's even better," she replied. When people ask how we met, we keep it simple. "We had a lot of late-night conversations," she says. "At a time when I needed someone to listen," I add. We don't mention roles. We don't explain timelines. We don't owe anyone that. What matters is this. She was assigned to supervise me. We didn't expect late-night conversations. We didn't expect anything beyond that. But when supervision ended, something else remained. Not obligation, not restriction. Choice. And choosing her, slowly, carefully, honestly, was the first decision I made that felt entirely my own.